Hi, my name is Mahmoud Sabawi, and this presentation is intended for those participating in the Coastal Bend Diabetes Walkthrough Video Challenge. And we're measuring some. So, the first thing we're measuring is body mass index, also known as BMI. It's a measure of obesity. So, what we're going to do is put you on a scale, take your weight, and also measure your height. And then we're going to calculate your BMI using the super fancy formula that you see. And 25 and higher is considered overweight, and 30 and higher is considered obese. Now, the reason we are measuring it is because overweight and obese individuals are more likely to get type 2 diabetes. It's considered a risk factor. The next thing we're measuring is blood pressure. Now, high blood pressure, also known as hypertension in the medical community, is when the blood pressure in the arteries is high. So, that's doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't know what arteries are, but arteries are blood vessels that carry blood away from your heart. So, uh, basically, you have a bunch of blood vessels in your body that run through across the body. When the heart wants to pump blood, it sends it through the arteries and then it travels through the rest of the body. Now, in high blood pressure, when you have high blood pressure, the arteries are having trouble pushing all that blood across to the rest of the body because the blood pressure is too high. And generally, this is a general number, is 140 over 90. It's considered hypertension. This, of course, can differ depending on other disease conditions you may have. So, for example, if you have type 2 diabetes, 140 over 80 is considered hypertension. So you'll see these numbers changing, but hypertension or high blood pressure is also a risk factor, just like obesity is. Another thing we're measuring is what is known as the hemoglobin A1C, which probably doesn't mean much to you, but long story short, it's a long term measurement of blood sugar, and it is how much of your hemoglobin has sugar attached to it. And so, what's hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a protein that's on the red blood cells in our body. We have a bunch of red blood cells flowing in our body, and on those red blood cells are proteins called hemoglobin. Now, when you have diabetes, which is basically a condition of high blood sugar, you have they like to attach the hemoglobin. So the longer you have high blood sugar, more and more of the hemoglobin will have sugar attached to it. And so it's usually a good way to diagnose uh, diabetes. And the reason it's good is it's a long term measurement. That's because red blood cells have a lifespan of 90 to 120 days. So they basically are alive for 3 to 4 months. And so it gives us kind of a measure of how good your blood sugar has been controlled for the last 3 or 4 months. And so, a lot of people going to the doctor, they won't eat any carbs just that day. And so maybe their fasting blood sugar will be good, but their A1C will be high, which tells us, they haven't been taking care of themselves. And generally, for type 2 diabetes, to get diagnosed, you need a value of 6.5% or higher. Now, the last thing we're measuring is uh, total cholesterol. Now, total cholesterol is often described as a waxy fat like substance. Basically, it's fat. I don't know any other way to describe it. It indicates risk for heart disease, And so basically, people with higher total cholesterol are more likely to get heart disease. And the reason we're measuring it in this study is that diabetes is also a risk factor for heart disease. So in this case, total cholesterol isn't a risk factor for diabetes, but diabetes is a risk factor for heart disease. And so a lot of times we're trying to control the total cholesterol of diabetics to prevent heart disease. And generally, total cholesterol is considered high if it's 200 or more. So the question is, why are we measuring all of these? And all of the previous that I described are considered modifiable risk factors. What that means is um, that basically it really just means that you could change these things. So if your cholesterol is high, you can change the way you eat and you could change the way you live to bring it low, to make it lower. And really, our hope is that by learning about the risk of type 2 diabetes, you will improve these numbers that, these things that describe to you. So if maybe you're overweight and you learn about why being overweight is bad and why it gives you a higher chance of getting diabetes, maybe you'll start doing more exercise, you'll start eating better, you'll lose some weight. Or you see that your A1C is kind of high, you start controlling what you eat. Maybe you eat less bread, maybe you eat less candy. And so our hope is the more you learn about type 2 diabetes, the more you're going to want to control all these numbers that I described to you today. And so hopefully this presentation was informative. And that's basically it. Thank you.